So for people with indigestion, people who can't digest their fats very well, people who eat their food and it just seems to sit there. You get bloating and distension and gas in the GI. This is somebody who needs the oil on the tongue in order to make their own system work harder. So again, two entirely different uses, same exact oils, just different format.
So the people who have the major problems, you recommend that they do this digestive reconditioning for a few months in a row, just back to back to back?
My opinion is that if you were to come up to say somebody who's, they say, well, my health is just really bad right now, and I've decided that I want to go the natural route, and you're the first person they talk to, and you're going to say to them, you're going to start from scratch. You probably have a whole bunch of symptoms. You probably have even some named diseases. First thing we need to do is fix your gut. Here's this gut program. I want you to start there. This is the foundation that we're going to lay in order to then be able to do anything with you.
Mm-hmm.
I would start there, yes.
So for people who don't have the major issues, how often do you recommend that they do the digestive reconditioning?
A couple times a year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Once in a while, I'll look online for like, what doTERRA oils to use for this or that. It comes up with these protocols. And when I see 6 or 7 different oils like that, what do I do with them? That's
And this goes back to the discussion about the Zymo.
I am.
Okay.
yeah.
These are the oils that I would typically find for people in my practice, and it's the whole list of them. My testing methodology is very precise, meaning that if I had you sitting there and I had my machine and I was testing you, it would test very specifically for what exactly your body needs, and only what your body needs. And you might look at this long list, you might only have 2 or 3 of those, based on the way I test. I listed all possibilities. If you take a look at this book, at any of the protocols it has in it, it's listing all possibilities based on studies that are out there that they can back up.
So it doesn't mean you do all
It
of
doesn't mean you take all of them. It means you look at these and say, what is the one? And, and this is where homework comes in. This is where this book is extremely valuable for you. You take a look at these oils and you say, okay, well, cedarwood. Cedarwood has antifungal, anti-infectious, antiseptic properties, especially for the urinary system. It's an astringent, a diuretic, insect repellent, and a sedative. How much of that applies to you? If cedarwood is in a list of 10 oils, and that one just seems to hit all your buttons, then take cedarwood. But if it doesn't seem to apply to you, then maybe out of that list, cedarwood wouldn't be on your list. So that's where it does take some homework on your part, and looking through this book and understanding that every oil is going to have an effect. Every oil will have some benefit. But there are oils who are specialists who are going to move more towards your particular problem than others. That's the one you want to get to. So either have somebody like me test it, or do your homework.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Someone is suffering from severe acid reflux and indigestion, would you still do the digestive protocol?
I would certainly have them doing the drops of digestion on the tongue with the oil. You understand that any kind of indigestion, reflux is not enough stomach acid production. They have too little acid in their stomach. So when you put that stimulatory thing on their taste buds, it'll have their stomach be full. Okay. I think that's the last slide.
One
Yeah,
more
that's-
quick question. You said Candida never, ever, ever, never, and I lost the last thing I ever
That's-
did. On my notes. You said Candida never, ever, ever, what?
is a primary infection.
Okay. Thank you.
It is always the reaction to something else. It is allowed to exist by a set of conditions. You don't get infected with Candida.
Okay.
Just like you don't get infected with chickenpox. You have chickenpox in you when you're born. You reach a certain stage of overwhelming exposure to your immune system that they manifest. Now, some of you may have written down some questions. I would be happy to answer those at this point, or if you have other questions you want to just shout out, whatever. So, hand me questions, or if you have notes or whatever. Linda's got a question. Can you talk about taking oils internally? There's a lot of information out there saying not to, although doTERRA says they are safe. They are potent. Okay. First of all, the people who are terribly, terribly strict about don't take oils internally tend to be from the English school of aromatherapy. They are people who, in the words of a very, one of the top aromatherapists in the world, it goes back to their imperialism of wanting to tell everybody, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Really, they're simply too cautious. I mean, they're the people who say you can only ever use it either diffused or in massage and very, very dilute. And there's nothing wrong with saying that small amounts of oil can have a profound effect on the body. And yes, diffused in the air can be very, very powerful. However, when we're talking about the virulent, super inflammatory, free radical processes going on in your body that are causing your disease process, you're not going to have a strong enough effect on them by aromatherapy alone. Okay? You're not going to be able to breathe in enough to take care of the metal toxins that you have embedded in your tissues. You simply couldn't breathe enough. Okay? So in that circumstance, that group of people seems to have found a way into the educational system that exists in American aromatherapy, where if you go to France, they'll do essential oils IV in you in the hospital. In order to become a medical doctor in France, you have to take a full year of aromatherapy, and essential oils are by prescription there. And they're taken internally all the time. My teacher, my original teacher in naturopathic school for essential oils was Kurt Schnaubelt. Kurt's from Germany, where all the time they're taking it in capsules. They actually, one of his favorite mechanisms is using a suppository of essential oils. They take cocoa butter and get it, elevate it to a temperature where it's liquid, and then mix the essential oils into it. Then they pour it out on a sheet of wax paper and freeze it, and then they cut it into little bullets and use suppositories. It's the easiest way to get oils into the bloodstream without the digestion interfering with them. I mean, literally, babies who have respiratory infections, they're using these suppositories and right to the lungs. I mean, the oils are in the lungs in minutes, undiluted, undigested, unchanged. So internal use, if you're not using them internally, you're way behind the current trend, the medical literature. You're living in the age where you're using leeches to bleed people. That's how far behind you are if you're not taking oils internally. Okay? To have any kind of comparison. So internal use, almost all of them can be, but certainly there are those that you want to be a little cautious with, especially in terms of how much you're going to dose and how much you dilute. And in this book, they have a very interesting system where they list it as AT or I. Okay, ATI means topical, aromatic, ingested. In this book, they take every one of these oils and say, if you're going to use it topically, can be applied to meat with no dilution. If you're going to diffuse it, yeah, no problem, or you can even inhale it directly. Internally, place 1 or 2 drops under the tongue, or drink with a beverage, taking capsules, use it. Okay. In other words, they're going to give you carte blanche. Now, there are those in here that they would say, well, you might want to use caution taking internally. You certainly want to dilute it and have it be more diffused in the overall consumption. There's not an oil you can't take internally. I have a couple of essential oils in my office that if you took enough of it, you could kill yourself. But yet, they can still be taken internally if they're used in minute dose very properly.
What is the average person, can we do that safely?
Again, very much depends on the person, their digestive capacity, how much fat residue they have in their body. In other words, the more fat you have in the body, the more the oil's going to stick. Okay? The more acidic your body, the more the oils are going to bind to the acids. So a thin alkaline person is going to use the oils and need very, very little of them. The more fat residue you have in your body, the more acidic you are, the more oil you need to have an effect on your systems. Okay? So how much oil can anybody use? The ballpark estimate is about 25 to 30 drops a day maximum. But I've given way more than that in certain occasions. But again, I don't think you need to bowl the body over with massive amounts of essential oils either. 2 to 3 drops is the common dosage I come up with when I test it. 2 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops, all the time.
Are you talking good fats or bad fats or just?
I'm talking about fatty tissue.
Okay.
So in other words, if somebody has a lot of adipose tissue in their body, that dilutes the fat of the essential oil. If somebody has a low body mass index, they're going to need less oil to have the same effect on their body. Again, pH is also the same way. The more alkaline your pH, the faster and more easily the oils work. The more acidic your pH, the more they have to overcome in order to have their effect.
Are there any oils to help you become more balanced pH-wise?
What is the strongest actor in making you alkaline? What is the thing that does the biggest job in making you alkaline?
Acids, right?
No, in terms of organs and systems.
Oh.
Your stomach.
Okay.
Let me describe this to you. Your stomach is supposed to be highly acidic, correct? The pH is supposed to be somewhere down around 1.5. No, realizing that 0 is as acidic as it gets, and 7 is neutral, that's highly acidic. So the more acid you have in your stomach, the more acidic the food coming from there would be, naturally, right? So you eat a bunch of food, you eat a meal. The stomach's job is to inject acid into it to the point where then it gets to an acid substance. And the more acidic it is as it comes into the small intestine, the more that acid stimulates a response from what? Next in line is gallbladder.
Okay.
Is bile alkaline or acid? Alkaline, highly alkaline. So more acid from the stomach means more bile is excreted to counterbalance the pH. Now, in your pancreas, you also secrete something that's alkalizing called sodium and potassium bicarbonate. What would you know sodium bicarbonate as more commonly? Baking soda. Baking soda, alkaline or acid? It's alkaline. So the more acidic your stomach, the more bicarbonate you get. The more acidic your stomach, the more bile you get. Now, you start taking Prilosec or Nexium or Rolaids or Tums, and you neutralize your stomach acid. What happens to your alkaline response? So the people who are the most tissue and fluid acidic are the people with the least active stomachs. Now, how can you activate your stomach more? Simply by taste. A little digest Zen on your tongue before every meal.
I had my gallbladder out a long time ago. So what happened?
Realistically, the
Yeah.
best you can do is to increase the rate of your trickle. Okay, the job of the gallbladder is to store a big batch of bile,
Yeah,
and then when you eat, it squirts it
Right.
strongly
right.
to get a big gush in there. Now all you do is constantly trickle. There's no control, it just moves in there by a little bit. All you can do is increase the trickle. And again, the taste of the Digest Zen can do that to some degree. You're never going to be optimal, just simply can't be.
Right. So just always take that in.
Yeah, just a couple drops in the tongue before every meal. It's
Before
real
every
simple.
meal.
And at first people get a little hairy about the taste. Yeah, I like it. But again, understanding that taste is the mechanism of correcting your problem, put up with it. After a while, you get used to it. It doesn't bother you. And actually, you start to notice the hints of ginger, and it's like, I actually can't taste it. Oh, peppermint. I mean, you start to kind of like wine. You start to recognize certain aspects about that
Yeah.
you can then appreciate more. So realistically speaking, with your gallbladder gone, Digest Zen needs to be constant. Never, always there no matter what.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there are some things that I have in my office that are more herbal-based, what are called cholagogues, that stimulate more bile production in the liver, so that the source of your trickle increases also.
Okay.
You can do that, but realistically speaking, with the oils, that's the only thing you can do.
Thank you.
Which, that's not fun. I just want to mention this quickly before we get too close to the end. I do not come here to do testing, and going to Burnsville to get testing might be a little bit of an inconvenience for any of you. You can do this by mail. Believe it or not, I can actually test you by mail. You can send me a hair and saliva sample, and I can take that hair and saliva, put it on a testing machine, use it as a filter to test through, and then I use my own points to test it. It's been remarkably accurate. I don't have to know you. I don't really need to understand much about what your health is. The testing process tells me, and I can then literally go through all the doTERRA products and say, what do you need?
Wow.
And I can tell you why you need them. That's the kicker. I can let you know why this oil is having what effect on what system to help you out in the long run. Okay. Any other questions pop up? Any ideas, any comments, any questions that you have about the system, about oils, about in application types, anything like that?
I've been on thyroid medicine. I know.
This is a pretty depressing class for you, isn't
But
it?
I think they're all tied in too. I think it's all,
Yeah,
you know,
certainly.
so what's,
Well, there are things that you can do to increase your thyroid efficiency. One is increase your bile flow, because T4 is still being produced by your thyroid. It still goes out to the system. It still needs to go to the liver. It still needs to be released to the bile system. So increasing your trickle would release more into the system.
okay.
Eating a high cholesterol diet, a high fat diet would be a very good idea for you.
Weird. And they
I know, I
they
understand that.
prescribed statins for me because of my
Whoa.
high cholesterol. Now you're telling me.
You're on a statin? Let
No,
me
I
go
took-
on record to the
no.
camera. Drop your statin like a hot rock.
I did. I
Okay.
took myself off of them a few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and because all the current medical literature
Right.
says that the statins are a disaster as far as your health.
Right.
But specifically for somebody with a hormonal problem, they deny you those cholesterol molecules to have your hormones right around your body on, right?
Right.
So you're right, it is all connected. So in that circumstance, eating a high-fat, high-cholesterol diet, again, good fats,
Right.
are the thing that will allow you the substrate to build more hormones throughout your body. And that's all hormones, thyroid included, okay? Now, beyond that, what can you do? You can stimulate the cell receptors to be more actively receptive to the thyroid hormone. Mito2 Max, it's a capsule product, can help you do that. In other words, you're gonna gain more metabolism by the thyroid you do produce by taking the Mito2 Max. That would be very beneficial. The LLV pack, which is the Lifelong Vitality, it's got the 3 different vials. That has much of the nutrition that's just simply the fuel from which you make hormones. You need minerals, you need vitamins, you need amino acids in order to do that.
So those two are must for
Yeah,
me.
so pretty much, yeah, go with the LLV pack, go with the Mito2 Max. Those are the 2 very good things nutritionally